you were here yesterday, welcome back. And if you are joining us for the first time for these sessions, welcome to you. I'll sort of repeat a little bit of what Dave said, that obviously we wish we were in person so that we could be seeing you and enjoying the amazing views that Salve offers, and this great time of year to be in Newport. But this is the next best thing, and we're happy that we're able to speak with you. So today we're just going to do basically what I call a seaside chat. Throughout the course of the year, especially this year, I host a number of what I call seaside chats with the Salve Admit guy, where we talk about the university and navigating the admissions process. And so this is sort of a replication of that, where I'll have a chat with Dr. Armstrong, and then we'll provide an opportunity for a question and answer period towards the end. So first, let me say welcome to you, Kelly. Thank you so much for taking time out of a very hectic schedule as we navigate this ever-changing and crazy world. How are you today?
Wonderful to be here, Jim. It's an honor to be with you and these terrific counselors. So thank you everyone for taking the time.
Yeah, and I know, Kelly, that you have a very special affinity for the counseling community. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So my father was a college counselor, and he was a public high school guidance counselor in Braintree. And as those of you that are in the counseling, the public high school and even private high school area, you know that there are many duties that you have, but the college counseling part of his job description was by far his favorite. And he particularly loved visiting colleges and finding great matches for his students. And he picked my college, so for me, which was a perfect match. So I have a particular soft spot for college counselors. And then of course my first job in higher ed was in admissions. So I couldn't wait for this event this week. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, Kelly, why don't we start by, because you are new to Salve still somewhat, and so people who are tuning in may not be familiar with you or your history. Tell us a little bit about your history, what's led you up to this point in your career.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jim. This is my 8th institution of higher ed, and I've been lucky in my career to have sampled a lot of different kinds of higher ed institutions, ranging from small liberal arts places like Salve, of values or religious-based institutions like Salve, large public institutions, or larger private research institutions. So I've been in the UMass system, I've been at Bates and Tufts, and then most recently at Boston College. I was there for 15 years as their vice president for planning. And my work has really toggled between enrollment management work. I would tease Jim by saying there's nothing worse than having a boss that's actually been in enrollment management, since I know your business so well, although Jim is much better at it than I was. And also in planning and research. So while at BC, I was in charge of the strategic planning work and the master planning work, and had the opportunity to work with a lot of different deans and vice presidents there.
So you've now been at Salve for a full year, the 10th president of the university, and Salve's first lay president. Talk to us a little bit about why you made this choice to come to Salve.
Okay. So I'll admit, even though I grew up on the South Shore of Massachusetts, I did not know all that much about Salve Regina. I knew that I heard of it. I had some sense of its good reputation, particularly around certain programs, but I didn't know it well. And when a search firm called with the opportunity, I thought it was worth exploring, but frankly, at that point, I wasn't taking it all that seriously. And it wasn't until I came to the campus and met members of the community and really began to probe much more deeply into what makes Salve that I completely fell in love with this place. This is one of this is a hidden jewel. This is one of the best settings that anyone could be a part of. It's beautiful and lovely, but it's an incredibly strong and loving community. So I feel really blessed that Salve chose me because you know it's a real honor to be part of this community.
Thanks, Kelly. You know, we talk a lot, both internally and certainly in higher ed circles, about the rapidly changing nature of the world. You know, I often say in my info sessions for open houses, when I think back a number of decades to when I was in college, and I think about that experience and what that type of world we were graduating into, that was much less technological, much larger, because the telecommunications were not what they are today, much less accessible. And more regional, and now we're much more interconnected, we're much more global. Obviously, we have computers in our pockets and all of these big changes. What do you see, now that you've been on campus for a year, as Salve's strengths in being able to respond to this rapidly changing world that we live in?
I think that's really well put, Jim. It's almost impossible to keep up with the changes that we all navigate, you know, daily. But certainly, as you think about an educational environment, to prepare our students for those changes in a technical way. Almost any institution, I think, would be challenged with that. And I think Salve's approach has been very smart in this, and that where we've invested has been in the values and the ability of our students to think critically and think analytically across pretty much any setting that they would encounter. So it's that wonderful blend of the liberal arts with then wonderful hands-on experiences that our students are able to get out and test in the world. And the best part of that, I think, in addition, is the underlying value system that we work really hard to expose our students to and develop in them, which comes out of our Catholic Mercy heritage, so that our students have an ethical approach to how they're problem solving, and they have experienced problem solving, and they're able to test that out in the world. And I think that adaptability, that resilience, that that underlying ethical structure is what serves them well. And we see those examples over and over again in what our alumni are doing in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good point, because when I think about a lot of the institutions that I've been involved with over the course of my years, the institutions that you've been involved in, the general landscape of higher ed, there's that sort of that strong liberal arts foundation approach, or there's sort of the pre-professional, we're, you know, going to be very vocational in our approach. And I think we're doing a much better job of blending those two, where I think sometimes institutions see those as competing values, but actually they're synergistic values, particularly as they relate to today's world and today's needs. If you don't have both, then you're not providing your students with the foundation that they need to be successful.
I agree. And you add that third vector of coming from a values perspective, where you're really asking students to engage in that dimension of about, you know, what their place is in the world and how they can have an impact. So, you know, it really is, for me, when I was looking at Salve from the outside in, the perfect blend of what you would want for a transformative education.
Yeah, I think somebody had asked yesterday, had asked Missy about the business program, and one of the things that was different about our business program and how it worked within a liberal arts environment. And I agree. I think one of the things that's great about business here is that emphasis on ethics and the need to have ethical practitioners within a business world, because the business world today drives so much of what we're doing, whether it's in a not-for-profit environment or a for-profit environment, and whether it's driving the economy, but it's also driving society. And if it's not done from an ethical frame, if it's just purely a profit motive or a self-serving frame, then you're not accomplishing what our goal is, which is to really work for a better world, and a world that rises all boats, not one that is about the individualist.
I agree. I think you know, we've often said at Salve that we measure our success by the positive impact that our graduates have on the world. And that comes again out of that underpinning, that heritage that we were given to us by the Sisters of Mercy. It's really a wonderful legacy. And I think it is what sets us apart.
As still sort of a Salve newbie, has anything surprised you about this university in your first year?
It's a great question, Jim. I think the thing that surprised me the most was that we weren't better known. And I've had a number of colleagues, because I've been at so many different universities, who knew Salve perhaps because they came here to do some consulting or overlapped in other ways. And what I consistently heard was, oh, wow, that is a hidden jewel, or that is a light under a bushel, wait till you see it, and the first thing that you see, of course, when you come to Salve, it's the stunning beauty. It really is the most beautiful campus in the country. But what really struck me as I got to know this community was that there was something about the ethos of the people and the way they took care of each other, the way the faculty went way above and beyond for every student that they interacted with. The staff made sure every student was taken care of. It's really a very personal, supportive, connected community. And that is, you need to be here to really understand that, I think.
Yeah. Now, obviously, most new leaders, when they come into an institution, they come in with their own frame, they come in with their own lens, with some of their own goals. A lot of times, a change in leadership results in a new strategic planning process. When you came in, you recognized the need for a strategic planning process, but you're taking a slightly different tact than maybe is typical, focusing it around what we're calling a strategic compass. What are your goals in this process, and how do you think it's going to guide the future of Salve?
Yeah. So as someone who spent particularly the last 15 years working on strategic plans, some of them small, some of them large, it became clear to me that in this quick changing world, as you described, Jim, that we needed a strategic process that would allow us to be as nimble as possible. And as I just mentioned, that because the world doesn't really know Salve, we needed to define for the world who we are in a very concrete way. So when I thought about the compass exercise, it really was for us to be able to definitively answer the question, what every Salve student must have by the time they graduate. What makes Salve different from any other institution? And many of us who have been part of Salve could answer that pretty concretely. We needed a way to translate that to the world and then build our programs around that. So that has been I think, despite COVID, has been a really fun exercise for our community. We've had a design thinking approach where every member of the community has been able to weigh in, where we've met together as town halls and done campus-wide surveys. And this is a form of defining our values in very concrete ways and what we most hope for that Salve experience for every single student. And I think, that will help us become laser focused on what makes a Salve institution special. And for the sake of counselors, having watched my dad sort through all these hundreds of schools and try to define what each school is in a different and concrete way, I think that will really help us be able to articulate who we are to prospective students and families.
Expanding on that a little bit, what's your vision for Salve's future at this point?
Yeah. So, one of the things I love about American higher ed is the diversity of educational offerings. And as I see Salve's place in that world, one of the things we've discovered, especially recently, is that there is something very transformative about a small, high-touch, values-based institutional experience, residential experience that that really helps students become their best selves and to know themselves on a deeper level. And I think where Salve stands out is we do that remarkably well. Where we've invested is our student faculty ratio is very small. There's no class bigger than 35. Our faculty know our students really well. Our students get to know themselves really well. And I think for particular students, if I were a college counselor thinking about that match, this is a fully transformative experience for them. It would attract students that are looking for service, that want to make a difference in the world, that care about what they do in the world, and that where our mission is really strong. And the great thing about learning about this generation of students coming up is I think Salve is a wonderful match for that. These students, these are the ones out, they're protesting, they're asking for an improved experience, and for all of us, we resonate, I think, very well with this generation.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, and the counselors will appreciate this, and I apologize for being somewhat blunt about it, but I think the challenge for us as an institution sometimes is we have that very clear vision of who we are and what type of educational experience we provide and what type of graduates that we produce that are sensitive to the needs of the world. Unfortunately, sometimes parents translate that as my kid's going to go out and not make any money.
Yeah,
and
right.
In actuality, nothing could be further from the truth, because there are many ways to be responsible global citizens, but also to be very successful. So, for example, there was an NPR, I was reminded of this. There was a really good NPR piece this morning about Elon Musk talking about the fact that all of a sudden because the stock price of Tesla has gone up dramatically in the last couple months, his net worth has passed that of Warren Buffett. And the reason for that is because people are looking at Tesla as a responsible member of the global community, and that it's not just about cars or vehicles or SpaceX. It's really about industries that he's piloting, like more specifically the batteries and the renewable energy sources, or the utilization of renewables, or the need for space explorations. And I think when we look at our graduates, a lot of them are ready to go into these new fields that in some cases are either in their infancy or are not even created yet. And they're adaptable and they can move in and out of those, but they also have the passion that goes with being in that type of industry, that they can see beyond their own personal development of personal net worth, and think about it more as, how can I develop net worth, but do it in the context of meeting the needs of society.
Absolutely, and they use that net worth to give back, right, to their community. So because that's the way they've been educated, right, at a place like Salve, that they're an important part of the fabric of a community. And one of the things that being a data geek that I am, is, I get so frustrated when I look at some of the return on investment statistics that we see around, that typically measure the worth of college, and often they're looking at that first job right out of college, and evaluating the value of an institution based on that. And we know at a place like Salve, and this would be true of a lot of liberal arts institutions, but particularly with Salve, with our combination, we're about the long game, and and really how you build your experience over time. So when I think it was the Georgetown study that looked at the return on investment for Salve grads over the long term, we were in the top 8% of all institutions, and that's pretty impressive, given that we are a smaller place, and that would include Ivy Leagues and other elite institutions all over the country, because our alums are doing exactly as you described.
Now, given the state of the world that we're in today, I have to ask you about sort of COVID-19 and the university's response to it. How would you discuss, and how would you frame our response to COVID-19, and what are we going to look like in the fall?
So, higher ed, like all of us, has been our worlds have been upended by COVID. And because we're a residential institution, there's a whole level of being upended, in addition to what we're all dealing with in our day-to-day lives. The Salve approaches everything, again, from its values, and it's that, we start there. And as we talked about our response to COVID, it was really important to us that, the safety and health of our community was front and center, and that we preserve what was essential about our Mercy education and the residential experience for our students. So that combination led us to really have to re-engineer everything that we do, the ways in which we create residential spaces for our students. We're doing everything we can to social distance there so our students are safe. Our dining is getting re-engineered, and certainly our classroom is going to allow the utmost flexibility for the faculty as well as the students, where they are going to be continually teaching in 2 modes. So if you were to walk on the campus this fall, you would see immediately some differences in terms of the ways in which we look. We'll all be masked and our classrooms will be socially distanced, but the spirit of Salve will be the same, because we have chosen to try to keep our community together to the best that we can, and to put all of our, we'll have several $1 million worth of investment to do that, to make sure that our folks are safe and that we're able to stay together. There's some examples where some sister institutions may have opted to just bring one class back, and although we debated that, I think that would not be the Salve experience that we would hope to have for all of our students. So it meant a deeper level of engineering in terms of making the campus safe. So it will be different, but I think we have the big advantage of being small, and that I didn't realize how much that was an advantage until I came from larger institution and have watched how hard it is to adjust when you're at a larger institution, and that we're in this, we're in an island community here in Newport. So, the cases have been far less here. So, the assurance of safety for families, has been easier to grant because of the environment we're in. So, Salve, it's been tough for all of higher ed, but I think we've had a real advantage in terms of this shift.
There was a great article on Inside Higher Ed this morning, and we haven't had a chance to talk yet today, so I don't know if you saw it, and I need to email it around to the cabinet. That was written by someone from the American Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities, that talks about approaching COVID from an ethical frame. And I think he had 12 different points of questions institutions should be asking with regards to ethically answering these questions about should you reopen or not and how that would look. And as I was reading it, I was really satisfied to see that I feel like we as an institution have met all of those markers. And that made me feel a lot better, because obviously there is a lot of uncertainty out there. There's a lot of discussion as a parent of school-age children. There's a lot of discussions about middle school and elementary school, and whether or not those are safe environments to bring students back to, the safety of teachers. And I appreciate the fact that, we're taking a multi-tiered approach rather than just saying we're going to do one thing and that's going to be good for everybody. It's more about how do we meet people where they are.
Absolutely. That, I think if there were one word to describe our approach after we talked about, obviously it's values-based, but it really is about flexibility. Flexibility to make sure our faculty feel safe and supported, and that the technology is flexible. The same thing for our students. So if a student has and their family has been worried about the state of COVID in the country and would rather take their classes remotely, we accommodate. If they want to. If a faculty member wants to teach a class remotely, we've really tried our best to make sure that we're keeping the whole community flexibly safe as we can. So I feel like all of us, that we can't wait for this to be behind us, but I feel that we've done a great job planning and getting ready for the fall.
Yeah. This pandemic is really just the latest challenging facing higher education. Where do you see higher education trending over the next decade, and where does Salve fit in the overall higher education landscape?
So it's interesting. I think many of us, and the counselors would also attest to this, prior to COVID, there was one of the big headlines you would see in our trade press was about MOOCs or online learning taking over the industry. That why would anyone go to college and be in, why not just get your degree online and be done with it? if there's anything that this COVID experience has proven is how deeply important and transformative a residential, in-person, high-touch experience can be. And as our students have had to temporarily experience education without that, how many of them would walk through fire to get back to it because they realize how the depth that they're missing. So I think it's been a confirmation for those of us that have these kinds of experiences for students and how important they are. So I think that's been a wonderful and an unexpected side effect of COVID. And I think, again, I go back to the diversity of higher ed. I think places like Salve, where in many ways we're like the small businesses that knit together the country, and we offer something really special for particular kinds of students. That is a wonderful match for them that will carry them through their lives. And there's a place for us in the ecosystem of higher ed that I think is really important. So yes, we are seeing demographic changes, and all of us, of course, worry about those effects. But I'm convinced, especially being a small place, that we will continue to be a great match, especially if we offer what we were just describing, continue to deepen that trifecta, of great liberal arts background, really wonderful hands-on in the world skills with a values underpinning. I think that's what the world needs.
I also think that, and coming from my frame as a parent and thinking in the future of when my sons start looking at college, I think a question that families are going to have to start asking that maybe they didn't 10 years ago is, what's the financial viability of an institution? We've seen closures. This crisis is probably going to create more closures. I've seen a lot of articles in the last couple days, especially talking about massive layoffs at some institutions, some really, really significant budget deficits that people are projecting that they're trying to bridge. And I think it's really a testament to the management of Salve over the years that we're an institution that does not operate on a deficit, has not operated on a deficit, doesn't have deferred maintenance. And so, when I put us up against, sometimes the decision-making process of families is based on that net cost per year. And they'll say, oh, well, we got this huge award, without asking the question why. And what that means long term. Now that huge award may be great and may be deserved and may be wonderful, and that maybe that institution is financially viable. But what we've also seen recently is big awards from institutions where the families aren't paying enough to cover the cost of education of a student, and they aren't able to graduate from that institution because the institution is no longer open by the time the student is a junior or a senior. And so I think it's really important for all of us in this planning process to be asking that important question. And I appreciate the fact that we're not in that boat.
I am too, Jim. As a new president, one of the things, of course, I did was kick the tires financially, and because I've spent so much of my career navigating budgets, and it was, Salve is very conservatively managed, and that's, in a crisis like one we're facing, where many of us were just unexpectedly spending a lot of money we hadn't planned on for safety. It's been a relief to be at an institution with that kind of underpinning. So I think it served us well, and we're in a good position for the fall, and we weathered the last spring much better than most institutions because we were in a great cash position.
So last question I'm going to ask, and then we'll open the floor to other questions. When counselors are talking to students about Salve, what type of students do you think they should be advising to look at Salve, and why would Salve be the best choice for those students?
It's a great question. I think back to my dad, for him, it was always about trying to find the right match. When you're a counselor and you're looking at your caseload of, in some cases in a public school, like where he was, hundreds of students, you're really looking for the right school for that particular student. And when I think of Salve, I think of a student that would thrive in an environment where they would get to know their faculty really well, and they would not be ever lost in the shuffle. At Salve, it's impossible to be lost here. Your faculty are going to care about you, your staff are going to care about you, your fellow students are going to know you. that they would be the sort of student that would want to have hands-on experiences, like have research in that faculty member's lab, be out in the community doing hands-on work in the environment, for example. We tend to attract students who really care, and actually all of our students really care about service. That's very much part of our Mercy value system. So they want to give back, they want to make a difference. And I think we are a place that we're a student that is drawn to a tight community and knows that they can be in this community and kind of transform themselves and have an effect on Salve itself, as well as the environment beyond them. That's the kind of student I think that would really thrive here. So they can come from we value all different kinds of backgrounds. We have first generation students, we have students from very wealthy backgrounds, we have students from all over the world. But I think that openness, that sort of and the caring environment that we have at Salve is a place that for particular kinds of students, they will absolutely thrive. So I think our biggest challenge, Jim, as you and I have talked about, is, I think we need to be better about singing our own praises and having people understand what it is that makes Salve different.
So again, if the assembled audience has questions, please put them in the chat box. We would be happy to answer anything that you would like to hear from Dr. Armstrong.
And hopefully there's still people on the other side of this. I hope after a long day.
Luckily there are, and I want to thank you both for this discussion. It's great to be able to hear and kind of get a deeper look at how you both view the future of Salve. If anybody's listening and unsure, again, the chat's down on the bottom, and we'd love to be able to answer your questions and kind of dive a little bit deeper into what you're specifically interested in about Salve. Great, here we go. So I can start rattling these off for you. If you have one that you really would like to go for it. But from Laura Clark, thank you, Laura. With the price of college, how are you working to make Salve more affordable to the middle class?
So Jim, I don't know if you want to take the first pass at that, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, no, I certainly can answer that question. I think that, we have a very generous financial packaging that we provide to students. We recognize that the cost of higher education, at least the sticker price, has gotten pretty high. Our net price is much lower than our sticker price. We do have an above 50% discount rate, which obviously not unusual among small private institutions today. We also have a number of additional add-on scholarships that students can pursue once they're a student here, to help to continue to bring the price of attendance down. I think it's telling when we look at the debt load of our graduates and how we rank for debt load, as well as when we look at sort of the lifetime earnings of our graduates, we rank very highly for both. And so we know that students are being well served. I think this has been a particularly challenging time as families have lost jobs. And we have done a lot of fundraising around that. I think we're up to almost $500,000 fundraised that is providing direct relief to some of our current students to allow Salve to work this year in light of the fact that some families have lost income. And we have an incredible financial aid office here. Our director of financial aid, Ann McDermott, is one of the best you'll ever see. She seems like she brings money out of thin air sometimes, but we have a very close communication between our business operation, our enrollment operation, our financial aid operation, and our fundraising operation. And in terms of strategic compass going forward, and I know in terms of Dr. Armstrong's goals going forward, one of the things that she expressed early on in her tenure here is a desire to really invest a lot of our fundraising on continuing to build resources for financial aid, and recognizing that financial aid is not just about the neediest students. It really is sort of those and I see this all the time with financial aid, the hardest thing is once you get above that Pell threshold, but you're not necessarily in a higher income bracket, those students fall in sort of a donut hole in financial aid, and we work very hard to try to bridge that within our financial model.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you for that answer. And just to move down, Marjorie had asked, Marjorie, thank you for your question. How does Salve connect with the community that's in Newport? We actually just had a workshop on this yesterday for students, so it's good timing to ask this question, but I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Jim, I'll start, and of course you probably know a lot more about this than I do, having been here longer. I think one of the great things that I discovered is, frankly, how diverse Newport is. It has I think, an external reputation. People often think of the mansions and and this Gilded Age reputation, but Newport as a community has a very diverse set of constituents, and our students are involved in all aspects, really, of the Newport ecosystem. So you'll see our students involved because we have this wonderful architecture. We have a cultural and historic preservation major, so and students who are interested in this area. So you'll see them looking at some of the wonderful artistic elements of Newport. We also have a wonderful ecology. So you'll see students who are interested in the environment doing projects involved all over, in our beaches and other aspects of with our arboretum and other wonderful parts of Salve's the natural environment and Newport's natural environment. And then service is such an important part of who we are, and it's part of every student's experience at Salve that we have many partners within the local community that of all different kinds of social service agencies, for children, for adults, for animals, for pretty much any service that you could think of. And our students are involved in long commitments of service hours to those parts of the community. So there are many different ways for our students to get involved in Newport, but they are fully woven in. And Dave, you may have other off the top of your head, because you just run the session, examples beyond what I've just offered.
I would add, I think, and Dr. Chase mentioned this briefly yesterday, that I think some people, when they look at Newport from an outside perspective, have an expectation that this is a very affluent community, when in actuality nothing is further from the truth. There's probably the largest level of income disparity in this community as you'll find at any community in the United States, and it's actually the most economically challenged in terms of low-income folks of any community in Rhode Island. So while our campus is in this area of gilded mansions and this old money allure and luster, the reality is the community is one of great need. And so we work really, really hard to help bridge that need. And I think this is the exact type of institution that you want to have in a community like this, that is committed to making sure that it finds areas of need and works to help support it. On the other side of the equation, though, is because there is an affluence here, there's also a lot of satellites for businesses. So, we talk a lot about students that are interested in finance that might think, oh, I need to go to New York or I need to go to Boston to major in finance because those are the major economic centers, when in actuality, all of the major finance firms have some sort of presence here in Newport. And so the opportunity for internships and jobs upon graduation is really quite amazing. And so there's a strong networking experience that the university has to support the future employment needs of our graduates.
Great, and thank you both. And I will add the anecdotal of having been a graduate and now living in the city of Newport, you really start to realize how many Salve students are behind the counters or behind the inner workings of some iconic businesses that you probably visit when you come to Newport. Whether it's an art student that works at one of the galleries downtown and sources local artists to come in and puts on their own show, or just your waiter or waitress at a restaurant while you're in town, you'll see them around. They really are a ingrained in the community. And once you recognize them, you cannot escape them. And I think the community really does value that. Thank you. So Myron E. Simpson asked a question that's very relevant. And Myra, thank you. I have a student of color who's planning to attend this fall. So this is very useful for an incoming first-year student we have. Can you discuss the specific steps your community has taken to make the Salve community more inclusive and welcoming to all?
It's such a great question, particularly now. I think what's been, really unusual about this year has been not only obviously COVID that we're all navigating currently, but it's also been the racial strife and the work that we all hope to accomplish as an educational community towards racial justice that has been, an absolutely front and center part of our lives, everywhere. And at Salve, because we're an educational institution and because we're a mercy institution, and one of our critical concerns as a mercy institution is around race, it is our absolute commitment to do everything we can to make sure that our community is as inclusive and supportive as possible for all members and all kinds of difference, but particularly around racial difference and in these days. So, this is an ongoing conversation. This is not something one solves with with one stroke, but we will be engaged very deeply as a community on multiple levels around the kind of programming that we do, the places for students to have conversation, especially as they return in the fall, and the training that we offer our students. Our students are wonderful, that they come from all different backgrounds, but that we have a common vocabulary together to have these, these frankly very difficult conversations. We have a wonderful multicultural office on campus that, I think, does a beautiful job in creating a place of support and safety for our students who come from various backgrounds, but particularly from our students of color. We have some wonderful organizations, student organizations on campus, and some wonderful faculty and staff who are strong beacons of support as well. But this will be front and center. So as much as we are in the midst of COVID, this will be the central focus programmatically for Salve in the fall for our whole population.
Yeah, and Marnie, I just want to add, first of all, hi. I can see your smiling face in my head, which is nice. I would also, I would also add that, we're not perfect in this. We are an institution that recognizes that we always have to be improving in this area. And I think that we are making strides. We have an incredible Office of Multicultural Affairs in this campus run by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Sami Nassim, who is just outstanding in creating community for students of color on campus and making sure that they feel welcome and safe, and that they feel that their voices are heard. The Vice President of Student Affairs and I have on occasion sat down with leaders of the Black Student Union and some of the other multicultural student organizations on campus for lunches where we can hear their concerns so we can rise those directly to the cabinet. We have these really great multicultural education weeks on campus that brings in speakers and has panels made up of current students that are able to talk about, I mean, even, a year ago, we were talking about the issues of policing in communities and their impacts on students of color on this campus. So those discussions were already happening. We have been a place where we have seen Black Lives Matter protests over the last few years, and that's something that's been embraced by the community, not something that we have run from. So, I think that we are doing some good things, but I think more importantly, we recognize that we have a lot of work to do. And I think when we talk about those types of issues, that is the most important thing. And I would certainly say, please pass on to their student if at any point in time they feel like they need a resource or they need a place to go, send them to me, and I will make sure that they are heard and that they get the resources they need. And Dave, I know we're running up against time, but I think we can run a little long.
Yeah, let's do these last two questions that we received. So I'm going to do the second one first from Laura. Thanks again. Being in the Southeast, I'm wondering what other schools does Salve cross applications with?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that because I usually have the list in my head right in front of me. Regionally, we see a lot of cross app with the New England Catholics. So you're seeing Providence, Fairfield, Sacred Heart, St. Anselm College, St. Michael's College, Assumption. You're also seeing a lot of the state schools regionally. So we're seeing University of Connecticut, University of Rhode Island, UMass Amherst. As we get more outside of region, we're looking at places like Marist, High Point, Elon. And actually a dramatically growing list. It's really amazing. I was just looking the other day at the number of other institutions that students were choosing for the ones that didn't choose Salve, and that list is almost 300 institutions long. So what we're finding is there's not, whereas 10 years ago there was a very specific student that was looking at Salve that was looking very specifically at New England Catholics. That has changed dramatically in the last decade. And now we are to the point I was making yesterday in terms of the evolution of this institution. We're being considered alongside a lot more very, very serious academic institutions as an option because people are understanding the type of rigor that they're getting here, in part because of the type of close relationships that they're having with faculty and the willingness of our faculty to provide that mentorship and challenge and to really elevate students, to encourage them to pursue areas that they may not have considered, whether that's fellowships, whether that's study abroad, whether that's internship experiences, whether that's graduate school. And so, while it's been slow to get that message out there, I think it's starting to resonate.
Excellent. And then we'll take the last question from Christina. Thank you, Christina. Are there any majors or areas that you plan to update or grow in the next 5 to 10 years? This is one of my favorite questions that we get asked when we're out on travel. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So it's such a wonderful question, and this is really a central focus of our strategic compass. But what I see for Salve and what we've spent a lot of time talking about is a real move toward some interdisciplinarity among our programs. So we're known, of course, for a number of different programs around business and around nursing and healthcare, but offering programs that allow students to develop expertise in both. We recently launched a data science program, which we're excited about. And we are looking much more deeply at hands-on engineering kinds of programs to allow our students that ability to take their skill sets and apply them in the world. Jim, you've also been deeply involved in this conversation with our academics. So I will allow you to add to that as well.
Yeah, I think we're seeing, particularly because of our strength in our sciences, we're seeing a lot more focus on healthcare type career fields and beginning to develop connections with other institutions to provide pathway experiences. So, for example, we now have a 3-3, 3-2 graduate pharmacy pathway with University of St. Joseph in Hartford, Connecticut. We have an engineering cooperation for an undergraduate, graduate 5-year program with Washington University in St. Louis. I think we're going to start seeing more of those types of connections around areas like physician assistant and other healthcare fields where those are sort of going to be, as we look at employment statistics and a lot of the research, that's where the world is going, a significant need for people in healthcare and other scientific research areas. And because we've got the strong science here, that's a good place to start. I think we're also going to see, and this goes to the hiring of one of our newer faculty members to focus on healthcare advisement. We expect to see more students pursuing medical school and dental school and veterinary school in the future than we do now, because we can leverage the fact that they are prepared for that type of rigor.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for your questions. Jim, Dr. Armstrong, thank you so much for your insights into Salve. We hope that this helped you see a little bit more into the place that Salve has in the present world. And we hope that you're able to join us for our next 2 sessions. Starting at 2, we have a parent and alumni panel, which is not to be missed. Our parents and alumni love to talk about Salve. And later on, a letter of recommendation workshop that will hopefully give you something to bring back to your colleagues. But again, I just want to extend one last thank you to Dr. Armstrong and Jim for your time today.
It's an honor to be here and wonderful to meet you all virtually. Thank you for taking the time to visit us at Salve.
Thank you, Kelly, for your time. Enjoy your day, folks.